a story about the bathroom, specifically the home bathroom in the United States. We all know what happens in the bathroom, but if you think about it, there's actually a lot more than that. We do a lot more than just use the toilet, brush our teeth, and get clean in there. The industrialist Henry Ford used to like to say that every object tells a story if you know how to read it. What he meant by that is that no object we have just appeared out of nowhere. It was made for a purpose, in a way that would serve that purpose, and the story behind that will often tell you a lot about the people who made it. In this case, we can think of a bathroom as a kind of object, and I believe the story of the bathroom in America can tell us a lot about American culture. There was a time, not that long ago, when very few people even had a bathroom in their home, but nowadays it's pretty much a given. It's become so essential that many people would say it's a big part of what makes a home a home. Many people even use their bathroom to communicate things about who they are, or at least who they want to be, to other people.
I do think that the bathroom plays a role in the creation of that idea of home, which is really tied to identity, especially in the United States. I tended to study houses during the early part of the 20th century, and it was less important then. A bathroom was sort of a function. It wasn't sort of tied very closely to identity. But I think it's become increasingly more so, and I know just from watching television shows about home improvement or television shows about finding a place to live, that people tie a lot of their identity to the bathroom construct of their homes.
The first toilets, which appeared during the late 1800s, weren't part of any kind of actual bathroom at all. At that point, if you had a toilet, it stood on its own in a little closet of a room called a water closet. Most people didn't have sinks or bathtubs. You'd wash up using a bowl and a pitcher of water, which would either just be sitting on a tabletop in your bedroom or on a special piece of furniture called a washstand. You'd pour a little clean water into the bowl, wash your face or part of your body with it, and then add a little more clean water to the dirty water for the next part, like in this animation. Since you'd have to heat up the water on the stove a little bit at a time, you'd only take a real bath every once in a while, maybe for a special occasion, and you'd do it in the same wash tub you use for doing laundry. For the most part, it was only babies and kids who got regular all-over baths, and that was either in the same laundry tub or in the kitchen sink if it was big enough. Even if you could afford a special tub that was just for bathing, like the metal one in this ad for soap, it was still more often used for kids than adults. Taking a bath without running water in a tiny basin wasn't especially easy, so it could become quite a production requiring someone else's help, so it just wasn't something you'd do every day. And a shower was a whole different story. Showers existed, but you didn't take one just to get clean. It was a medicinal thing, prescribed and controlled by a doctor, and was only ever with cold water, never hot. It was only at the end of the 1800s that personal cleanliness as an everyday thing became something that ordinary people even sought after, and that change was largely driven by the soap industry, and to a certain extent racism as well. Soap was the first commercial product to be branded and mass-marketed the way almost everything is now. Meanwhile, at the same time, it was the new age of imperialism. Europe and the US were invading Africa, Asia, the Western US, and pretty much anywhere else they could. The soap industry took advantage of this coincidence by promoting the idea that white people had a moral duty to impose soapy cleanliness and thus civilization on the black and brown natives of the colonies. Black and brown people in the U.S. as well were portrayed as dirty and in need of civilization, which encouraged white Americans to associate cleanliness with whiteness, a catchy idea that sold not just a lot of soap, but the whole idea of keeping cleaner than anyone had ever been before, which made bathrooms suddenly seem a lot more necessary. Like so many other things in the home, the bathroom started out as something only for the very well-off. And it was a real room with lots of space, not the sort of mini room it would become later. This was because it was usually a room that used to be used for something else, that had been made into a bathroom. It wasn't built just for that, unless it was a brand new house. The bathroom also wasn't limited to the standard three pieces most of us grew up with now. Everyone's bathroom was different, furnished according to their own particular preferences, often including a few fixtures that have since gone completely out of use. One of these was the foot bath. Since hot water was really expensive, even rich people didn't take a whole bath every day, but they probably didn't want to go to bed with dirty feet any more than we do now. And along the same lines was a sitz bath, which was like an early version of a bidet. It was a tiny bathtub just for your lower parts. And you'll notice a very special looking shower here called a needle bath, which shot needles of ice cold water at you from all sides, all in the name of supposed good health.
As technology improved, certainly the design of bathrooms changed to accommodate for that. So the tank moves down, the toilet becomes more standardized, and the room becomes a little bit more standardized too.
At this point, right around the turn of the 20th century, even though indoor plumbing was growing more and more widespread, it was still mostly rich people who had bathrooms. But all that changed in 1908 with the opening of the Statler Hotel in Buffalo, New York. The Statler was the first hotel in the world to put a bathroom in every guest room. And since it wasn't an especially expensive hotel, this meant that many of their middle-class guests got to experience having a private bathroom for the very first time. The hotel became such a success because of these bathrooms that real estate developers immediately started including small three-piece bathrooms in all of their new homes for the middle class. So in one fell swoop, the home bathroom became something for the middle class as well as the rich.
So we moved from a very utilitarian room, I'm going in here for one purpose only, to having a room that we would wallpaper, or a room for which women would crochet or knit cozies to cover the toilet paper roll. And as that change is happening, I think changes in the design of the bathtub also come into play and change the way we think of the bathroom space. So we moved from the great big cast iron tubs to prefabricated tub shower units that are in a different way utilitarian. They're places where you can easily imagine bathing children, but then taking a shower yourself. Right? And that kind of takes us away from the bath as luxury.
So by the early 1940s, it was fairly common for a middle-class family to have a bathroom in their house. And though they might have some nice curtains and a pretty bath mat, the bathroom looked pretty much exactly the same as it would have looked 30 years earlier. A toilet, tub, and sink, close together, and generally white.
Then by the time the 1950s and 60s roll around, I think that our image of the bathroom is more harried mother trying to get everything done, and that means efficiency. So 2 or 3 kids in the bathtub, and then I'm going to shower and get rid of the dust of the day and move on to the rest of my jobs.
One thing that really interested me when I was working on my book Populux, which is about the 50s and 60s, was the fact that so many of the houses that were being built at that time had fewer bathrooms than the houses that were being built before World War II. And the reason was, of course, a lot more houses were being built, and they were being built for people who weren't so wealthy. So the post-war bathroom is really an attempt to catch up, to provide this service. So they tended to be fewer per house, and they tended to be more minimal than the bathrooms had been immediately before World War II. Although, obviously, before World War II, there were a lot of people who didn't have bathrooms. I recall in the 1950s going to visit my grandmother, who was not a poor person, but had an outdoor toilet. So it's this first thing that we often forget about, this catching up, that for a lot of people, the post-war, the bathroom, having a real indoor bathroom with all the fixtures, was a novelty.
So in the late 40s and early 50s, if you had a bathroom at all, it was likely to be pretty similar to what you might have had in the 40s. Simple and compact with white fixtures. Maybe you'd splurge on some colorful tiles and maybe a bright shower curtain, but not much more than that. And that was considered plenty, until something happened that this smiling woman had no idea was coming. Television, and the consumer age it gave birth to by way of mass marketing on a scale the world had never seen before. In 1952, only about 2% of American households had TVs, but over the span of only 2 years, that percentage grew to a whopping 20%. This meant that between TV and magazines, Americans were being exposed to more advertising for more commercial products than ever before, and most of it was goods for the care and decoration of the home, including the bathroom.
one of the issues that furniture makers and appliance makers have is that they are able to sell an item so rarely to people. And so the way to deal with that is to make them fashionable. To do what, to get a sense of what the bathroom of today is. And so it wasn't, in the late 40s, in the early 50s, it was, you had one, and you had tile in it, and you had, but as these decades have gone on, there has been the attempt to bring fashion into it more, and the way, of course, that fashion works is that it makes things look old before their time, that things become dated sooner, and that way you sell more.
So all of a sudden, women, and it was really specifically women, were being bombarded with ads that were meant to make them think of changing their bathroom fixtures the same way they'd think of buying a new dress. Ads like this one, and this one, floated the idea that having a nice, stylishly colorful sink and tub were part of being a glamorous woman of the modern age. It's not quite clear why it was considered glamorous to hold one arm out at that weird angle, but there you have it. This kind of marketing ploy was right in line with the times, because it embodied all the pressures being placed on women in the 50s. We weren't supposed to work outside the home, but we were all supposed to be the world's best possible housekeepers and decorators, and also impeccably well styled and spotlessly clean at all times on top of all that. So the bathroom at that time became sort of a woman's home office and workshop, the place she kept so clean you could eat off the floor while she did her fairly elaborate 1950s style hair and makeup, and at the same time made sure the rest of the family was clean and well groomed as well. With an emphasis on clean, the 1950s were a time of almost laughable concern with personal cleanliness and grooming, and women in particular were constantly being shamed by the advertising industry into worrying about body odor. These ads for deodorant were 100% typical of their time, and you'd never see an ad like this aimed at men, just women. So it made sense that women might spend a lot more time in the bathroom than men, and it became a very feminine kind of space. It was also a time of pretty over-the-top germophobia. There are lots of speculations on why that was. Maybe it had something to do with the polio epidemic, or maybe it wasn't really about germs at all. Maybe germs were like a psychological stand-in for other outside elements that society in general was afraid would come in and get us all at that time, like the atomic bomb or communism. Whatever the reason, keeping clean to fight germs was a major thing around then, as evidenced by this hilariously bizarre clip from a 1952 school film about hygiene.
Let me introduce myself. Soapy's the name, partner.
Why, you're a living cake of soap.
The animals I help you control are called disease germs. Disease germs are dangerous because they make you sick if too many of them get inside of you. And they can be on almost anything that children touch or handle, even on things that look clean.
And sure enough, the plumbing industry played into this fear with a whole new fixture you just had to get for the bathroom, the dental sink. This was a tiny, extra little sink that was just for brushing your teeth because the horrific idea of mouth germs mixing with face germs in one sink was just too much for anyone to bear.
No, but that's another one of those classical things. They're trying to sell you an extra sink. Yeah. And, nobody really saw the point.
Meanwhile, there were other things the plumbing industry was pushing on housewives that they actually did buy for the bathroom, because they addressed much more practical issues like families having too much traffic moving through their one single bathroom in the morning. As people had more kids and kids turned into teenagers, an extra full-size sink came in handy. And even though women were being strongly encouraged to stay home and take care of the house and kids, some of them were gradually starting to sneak off to work anyway. They needed to if they were going to buy all this new stuff that was being pitched at them. So that meant 2 adults trying to get ready for work in the morning at the same time, plus the kids getting ready for school. The plumbing industry also started encouraging people to put in a half bath as well, and they did so, often for the same reasons. As a side note, another change that people actually made was the addition of vanities, which were these newfangled cabinets under the sink that are now pretty standard. This was because all the technology that had developed during the war made small appliances like hair dryers, electric curlers, electric razors, and curling irons more and more affordable, so middle and upper class people suddenly had a lot more stuff to store in the bathroom. But even as technology changed and women started working outside the home more and more, they were still expected to do all the house cleaning and childcare, and were starting to get a little bit pissed off about it. The bathroom industry picked up on this frustration and started making little nods to it with their products, though nothing they offered actually really made any difference. This ad talks about how this bathroom was supposedly so easy to clean, while this ad for a toilet cleanser sheds a little light on how not every woman was a happy housewife.
Vanish, the new disinfectant bathroom bowl cleaner. Another work-saving product from Dracket.
Scouring powder, disinfectant, bleach, deodorizer. Today I get to clean the bathroom bowl.
Stuck with the nastiest job in the house? Make it vanish.
Vanish?
Total Action Vanish. Try it. See, Total Action Vanish lifts off water stains, disinfects, bleaches, even leaves a clean, fresh fragrance. You just brush and flush. Next time you're stuck with the nastiest job in the house, make it vanish.
This same ad we saw before also illustrates a decorating trend that was just starting to emerge. The bathroom as a comfortable space with furniture that before then would only have been found in a living room or a dining room, like this upholstered bench and the carpet extending past the sink and into the toilet area, which, incidentally, made it not so easy to clean after all. The famous actress Jane Mansfield was what you might call an early adopter of this new trend of making the bathroom a bit more comfortable, making news in 1957 with the bathroom at her famous Hollywood house called the Pink Palace. With pink furry carpet on every surface, including the ceiling, Jane's sanity comes into question, but apparently she was onto something. As we got into the 60s, this conceptual expansion of the bathroom into a place for women to do more than just get clean continued to develop. The modernism of the post-war era was still the main thing, with its clean lines and hard washable surfaces, but curtains and dressing tables and area rugs were working their way in. In 1969, the plumbing supply company American Standard even had a musical written that was all about the women's revolution in pursuit of bathrooms that were nice enough to relax and think in, not just clean and bathe the kids and then get out. It's not clear whether The Bathrooms Are Coming was making fun of the women's lib movement or if it was serious, but in any case, the results were hilarious, and bathrooms did indeed get more comfortable.
I can stay making faces at my face.
And so I remember when I was a child watching the television, and one of the big commercials was for Calgon.
The traffic.
I can't read
the boss. The baby. The dog. That does it. Calgon, take me away.
Lose your cares in the luxury of a Calgon bath. Calgon softens the water to leave skin feeling silky smooth as it lifts your spirits. The soft, luxurious, fragrant world of Calgon.
I love it.
Pamper yourself with a Calgon bath. Lose yourself in luxury.
So there's that same harried mother in the big bathtub with a bubble bath saying, Calgon, take me away. And the bath is her transportation to a calmer time, a peaceful moment, a relaxation in her day.
So then bathrooms got a lot more comfortable. The 70s bathroom, along with the rest of the home, got downright soft and fuzzy, with curtains and carpet all over everywhere.
Of course, that's another one of those cases where there was this sense of environments turning soft after things having been hard and austere and clean and so forth. The idea of the soft environment.
Some historians think it was also a response to the cultural shell shock of the Vietnam War. For various reasons, this was the first war that ordinary Americans had been able to watch unfold on TV without censorship by the government, and they were not happy with what they were seeing. TV journalist Morley Safer's 1966 report on the pointless burning of a Vietnamese village by U.S. soldiers was a major turning point for many people. and this famous 1972 photo of a little girl running away from her village that had just been doused in napalm and burned down sparked a lot of suspicion regarding what exactly the U.S. was doing in Vietnam, and to a certain extent, a new kind of suspicion regarding how the world worked in general. Suddenly, people wanted to retreat indoors and turn every surface and every room into a soft nest to cuddle into and hide, including the bathroom. It also got filled to the brim with plants, both as graphic motifs on wallpaper and curtains and in real life.
Well, plants were in the bathrooms because they were actually everywhere. It was one of those moments, sort of stylistic moments when, as happened in the Victorian era, where you have a desire to be kind of in a natural setting, in a green and overflowing and verdant setting. And so plants were in the fern bar and in the living room and in the kitchen. And the bathroom, being a wet place, seems to be a good place for kind of jungle decor and jungle-like plants.
This plants in the bathroom trend continued into the early 80s, at which point we saw a couple of new trends appear. One had to do with color and graphics. Computer graphics took a big leap forward in the 80s, and the black grid with white lines that so many computer animation programs had as a working background started appearing in trendy art graphics everywhere, along with rainbows. This grid and primary colors from the rainbow found their way into bathrooms as well. Black square tiles with white grout were a hot thing for a minute, and even the big bathroom companies started producing fixtures in bright primary colors. The biggest trend to emerge in the 80s, however, was the spa bathroom. This had started in the late 70s with some of those plant-filled bathrooms we just saw, but for various reasons, it really took off in the 80s. This was partly because of sort of growing interest, at least among the upper classes, in the bathing traditions of the rest of the world. There was even a magazine about it called Wet, the Magazine of Gourmet Bathing, which ended up launching a whole new graphic design style called the California New Wave, but that's another story. But suddenly, steam baths and saunas and long soaks in huge tubs were trendy, and people wanted to do these things in their own homes. This was when the jacuzzi was born. The bathroom company Kohler even came out with this ultra-expensive thing called the Environment, which you'd climb into, presumably naked, unlike this model, to experience rain, fog, simulated sunshine for tanning and steam, and various sauna-like temperatures. It was clearly an aspirational item, as no middle-class family could ever afford one. But just think, 10 years earlier, nobody even wanted to have these experiences in their bathroom. This was part of a whole new concept of what a bathroom was for.
I think that what was happening at that point is that, home builders are always looking for a new feature, a new something something more that they can sell. And clearly, having an indulgent bathroom was potentially a new profit center for them. But in addition, you have this, in a way, in the 80s, you started to get this reaction against the 60s and 70s, and the reaction against kind of, shaggy authenticity, and into a sense of luxury, and the Reagan era, and Mrs. Reagan and her new China, and so forth, and you started to get a number of things happened in the whole, in decoration and in interior decoration. One interesting thing was that useful decorating magazines became not really very interesting. And what people wanted were people wanted things like Architectural Digest, which were celebrities' houses, and things were voyeuristic. So it was not helping. The magazines were not helping you to live a good upper middle class life, which had been the rule previously, but to make you aspire to be some kind of a movie star, to have a little bit of the movie star look in your home. and you began to get, I guess Shirl Wagner had been around for a long time, but it was in the 80s that you started to get these very, very upscale faucets and all, gold-plated faucets and all these kinds of things that were very, very heavily marketed at that time. Mm-hmm. And it was really, it's the beginning of what, of the debate we've been having lately about, or discussion we've been having lately in public about inequality. And, basically we were at our most equal in terms of wages and wealth sometime in all of American history. It comes sometime in the 60s. And then from the 70s, this started to come apart, and it became apparent in the 80s that not everyone has a spa bath. It's just that the spa bath was something to aspire to.
Then we had the 90s. The spa bath trend had definitely kicked in full force by then, and even the most middle-market homes had started to have big jacuzzis and separate showers. But there was a massive housing boom in the 90s. It was the height of suburban sprawl, with millions of houses going up in thousands of suburban subdivisions full of inexpensive houses that mostly looked just like this. It led to shortages in inexpensive building materials, so developers would buy up huge lots of the exact same building components at a time, meaning all the bathrooms they built ended up looking pretty much exactly alike. So there's a certain look that today screams, "I was built in the 90s," loud and clear. Fake stone countertops and fixtures in white, wood cabinets, beige floor, and gold-colored trim. It was literally everywhere. But thankfully, by the turn of the century, variety had crept back in, and the spa bath trend had taken even firmer hold, but with a new twist. In the 80s and 90s, the bathroom was about showing off in a slightly gaudy way, as the gold trim that was everywhere suggests. But now, even though the bathroom is still definitely a place to show off wealth, its look is a lot more toned down and quiet, at least in terms of appearance. The Japanese bathing tradition seems to have a big influence, with its deep soaking tubs, views of nature from the tub, and its emphasis on the bath as a place for relaxation, deep thinking, and reflection on life. Natural materials like minimally treated wood and unglazed stone are also a lot more popular now than they were in the 80s or 90s. All of this plays into this new concept of the bathroom not just as a spa, but as a place for everyone, not just harried housewives, to retreat. A recent poll by a bathroom fixture company showed that for 43% of their respondents, the bathroom was the only place they ever got to be alone. And around 39% said that the bathroom was where they went when they wanted to think. In a time when we're surrounded by technology and constantly connected digitally to a lot of other people all the time alone can really come in handy. And one way people are getting more time alone is by expanding both the amount of space their bathrooms take up in their homes and the bathroom's role in their daily lives. A look at current design magazines and blogs shows that bathrooms are looking more and more like living rooms. Here are a couple of bathrooms that you really have to look at twice to see that they're bathrooms at all. These are places you really want to spend some time. Some people are even bringing the bathroom all the way into their bedroom, as in not even behind a wall and a door, but literally right there. This seems to be a growing trend, and it ties into what seems to be another trend, the privatization of the bathroom. The number of bathrooms in both middle market and luxury housing has exploded in recent years. Take a look at this house in LA, for example. According to the architect who designed it in 1985, he gave it only 15 bathrooms for its 13 bedrooms, which was a lot even then. But over the years, various owners have added more and more bathrooms to the point where it now has a whopping 41. Granted, that's extreme, but even on a slightly smaller scale, it's no longer uncommon for an 8-bedroom house to have 15 bathrooms. And even though this is obviously the luxury market that we're talking about, and the average house doesn't have anywhere near that many bedrooms, never mind bathrooms, trends like this that start in the luxury market almost inevitably trickle down into the more affordable market in time.
Well, I don't understand a 4-bedroom house with 8 bathrooms. And even if you have, you could have, it seems to me the maximum I can conceive of is as a bathroom for guests, or a powder room for guests, and then a bathroom for each bedroom seems to be the maximum. I've been interested to see that there's been a little bit, just very recently on the internet, there's been a lot of stories about, are you showering too often? Are you, there's the issue of whether in fact this kind of period of kind of extreme attention to showers and so forth may be maybe passing. I don't know. Maybe there's at least some question about how often people need. I mean, I think that there was a sense in which the proliferation of bathrooms is associated with changing standards of how often everybody should bathe and how clean one needs to be. Mm-hmm. I wrote a book about the history of the American teenager. I haven't looked at this work in 20 years, almost. But up at that point, there were pretty good statistics about increasing concern with personal hygiene. And at the same time, students unwilling to shower together in the locker room. So there seems to be a subtle change or not so subtle change in how in personal modesty and privacy, mm-hmm. which is a little bit counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive that at a time when pop culture would lead us to believe that Americans are getting less and less modest every day, we'd be seeking out more privacy to carry out the most basic human functions. But maybe it's a reaction to the loss of our privacy online and in our daily lives due to the advances of technology. That's just a speculation, but it's a feasible one. And it's one more example of how the bathroom is able to serve not just as a symbol of our personal tastes and identities, but it can be a valuable reflection of who we are and what's happening to us as a society as well.
My bathroom is a private kind of place. Very special kind of place. The only place where I can stay, making faces at my face. My bathroom is my very special room, where I primp and fuss and groom, where I can get away from all and really feel in bloom. I'm free.